Hi Kenneth, thanks for dropping by during Restructuring Week.
Hi,
I understand it's been a very busy year, but could you tell me about some interesting restructuring and insolvency cases you've been involved in lately?
Sure. I think the one that comes to mind was 2 years ago. Probably, I suspect every law firm and insolvency practitioner was involved in this case at one point or another. It was a listed group. I was appointed as the receiver of 10% of a company that held 25% of this listed group. Yeah, the group was listed in Hong Kong, but all its operations were in China. I'm not going to name the group since it's still listed, and it turned over. Annual turnover, and still the case, it was in tens of billions, and its profit was in billions. So it's a profitable group, and there were two other key shareholders fighting for control over this listed group. So besides the company, there was another two main shareholders, each about 25% then share. So it was pretty, therefore, complicated. And here I was sitting on the company that 25% of this listed group, but there was another receiver, another firm, also appointed over this company that was holding 25%, and they were appointed over shares of about, or the stake of about 45%. So together, we kind of controlled that company, and therefore, how we voted on our 25% of the listed group made a lot of difference to either party that were fighting for control. So it was a really difficult situation, because in these kind of situations where there are warring fractions, you can obviously not please, it's not possible to please everyone. So I took the approach that my job was appointed by the court, both receivers were appointed by the court, by different shareholders who claimed to have a stake in the shares that I was appointed over. So I took approach of being a little bit more conservative, because I thought my job is only to protect the assets, not to sell the stake. It was pending a decision on the shares, and it was pretty similar for the other receiver as well. So I basically did no more, no less than what I was supposed to do according to the court order. But the other receiver took a very different approach. He took a very more aggressive approach. He actually got himself appointed as in the board of the listed group.
Wow.
Yeah, and I think he not just as a director, actually became the chairman as well of the listed group for about maybe 9 months or something. I can't remember. And during that time, he did a lot of decisions on behalf of the group and did a lot of things. And 1 year later, after we were appointed, we were both discharged by the court, because for different reasons. For mine, it was because the shareholder that claimed to have, or the party that claimed to have an interest in the shares I was appointed over, was found to not be relevant, and his interests were no longer valid, and so therefore I was to be released, and I was released. But and the same for the other receiver, that he was released around the same time, before me. So what happened was, and during that 1 year, it was pretty hectic, because the lawsuits flying everywhere, and people asking us to do things that we didn't want to do, and so on and so forth. And anyway, I managed to get out of it quite intact. But the other receiver was a lot more aggressive, and they went into the listed group, and then he ran the listed group for a while. And after we were released, that's like a year ago,
Yeah.
and now the listed group is suing the other receiver for all those things he might have done or didn't do along with, because he sided with one of the parties, and the other party managed to somehow take control of the group. So the other party is now in charge of the group, and so now the company is suing that receiver during his time in the board. So I find it interesting, because because of the different approach. I'm not necessarily saying the other receiver is wrong or I was right. I'm just saying in those situations, sometimes it's so difficult and challenging. So 1 year after we release, this other receiver is still being sued by the company.
Do you think that makes you more conservative going forward when you get appointed?
Yeah, I mean, and that, I guess, you see especially the last 5-10 years, and I'm sure you might have been involved in a lot of these cases as well. When they're warring fractions, and it's increasingly a lot of that. And then in my early days when I was doing this, taking on appointments, there was less of that. But these days, especially when there's some value in the company, or the company's continuing to be operating, usually you find warring fractions. That makes it very, very difficult for the insolvency practitioner, because they will be caught in between.
Yeah.
So they'll be very, very careful.